Welcome to the Property Elite podcast. I'll be your host, Jen Lehman, chartered surveyor and co-founder of Property Elite. Stay tuned each week for more on industry hot topics, market updates and new RICS guidance.
Online assessment centre experience. I have recently been through the graduate application process for commercial surveying and successfully secured a position with a leading real estate company. So I'm sharing my experience of specifically online assessment centres, which can hopefully help you prepare for yours. What is an online assessment centre? So if you're applying for a graduate level role, internship, or any kind of position with a larger company, smaller company, most of them hold assessment centre days, which are pretty much online now due to coronavirus and how that's affected the professional environment. And an assessment centre is really a combination of tasks and activities, all set by the employer to really evaluate how you respond to various situations. And it could be exercises and tests as well, but all to determine if you've got the skills needed for that job you're applying for. And all of these assessment centres are pretty much the last stage in the application process. So if you do get this far, it does mean the company likes you. But it usually takes around a few hours or it could be a few hours over the course of a couple of days. The structure for an online assessment centre varies slightly differently between each company and will be very specific to the company that you're applying for. So really important that you do your research, know exactly what's expected of you. And a good way to do that is by contacting the graduate recruitment team. So you can start building a relationship with them, but also show that you're keen to understand the process. So in my experience, the general structure has always started with a welcome talk, anywhere between about 15 and 30 minutes. And during that time, it's just ice-breaking, introducing yourself and getting to know the early careers team, who will then run through the rest of the day's structure as well. So the welcome talk is then followed by a group exercise. That for me was about 50 minutes long, then followed by a 60-minute presentation and interview all in one. That was then followed by a closing talk where everyone came back together. And that was the whole structure that I experienced. And it might seem that you go into it sort of bang, 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 but there are quite good gaps in between. So it's relatively chilled out. And I imagine it would be the same with other companies, or pretty much all companies. Interestingly as well, for the online assessment centres, you will probably be sent sort of email links to Zoom calls or Microsoft Teams where you'll be able to join the calls at specific times. So if the welcome talk started at 9 a.m, you'll have a link for the welcome talk that you join at 8:55. And the same with a group exercise where you'll be sent an email with that specific link to join that specific call. That again would be sort of labelled at a specific time, but you might have the email addresses of other candidates also visible. So if that is the case for you, a good idea would be to check them out on LinkedIn so you can see where they're studying, what they're studying, and it's just quite a good way to prepare more effectively, to know who you're going to be working with, and that can help control your nerves. Another important point regarding the welcome talk is that you might be told only certain parts are being assessed throughout the day, and that could include the group exercise, presentation, and the interview. However, the reality is that you're probably going to be observed the entire time, so just bear that in mind. Show that you're keen and keep showing that you're engaged as well. And then with the welcome talk and all the other exercises that you'll have throughout the day, always make sure to show up on time or a couple of minutes early, again, just to show that you're ready to go and that you're super keen. And then dressing smart as well, because first impressions definitely make a difference. Group task. After the welcome talk, we received an information pack via email, which contained a brief and lots of information about possible solutions for a decision that the company we were applying for had to make. So the task was to review the options and agree as a team on which solution was best for that company to move forward with. So once the welcome call ended, we had about 20 minutes to analyse the resources. And that was done all offline individually, no assessors present. So yeah, quite chilled, and you can go at your own pace. So after the 20 minutes was up, we joined back in our smaller group calls. Again, that was all via Teams links that was sent to us a few days prior, or maybe a week prior to the assessment centre happening. So, but again, definitely make sure you turn up a little bit early. Even if it's just 1 minute, it just shows you're keen and ready to go. And then once we were in the call, we had a quick briefing and introduction by some different assessors in that group call. And then we had about 20 minutes to discuss our ideas as a team, and then 5 minutes to present the solution that we came up with. So our group consisted of about 5 people, including myself. However, during the exercise, one candidate actually dropped out because their Wi-Fi was obviously quite poor. So definitely make sure you have access to a good quiet space, good lighting, good internet connection. But I'd definitely recommend trying to set that up a couple of days before the assessment centre takes place. Just removes lots of stress from the situation, and you know that you'll be ready to go. So in the 25 minutes that we had to discuss our ideas, we covered all potential outcomes and the alignment with the company's values and business objectives, which was set out in the brief as well, the associated risks and opportunities, speculative business growth, consideration to employees, clients, and all other stakeholders. So definitely look at the brief, what's being asked of you, and you can break it up in those kind of objectives, and then it makes the whole group discussion a bit more structured, which definitely helps with timing. So before you go on the assessment centre and when you're doing all your preparation, definitely research the company's values a lot, their mission statement, things like their business objectives as well, because as a team you can quickly determine the non-viable outcomes by linking all the values and mission statements and things like that back to the brief. So that's definitely something that would help. But then once you've actually agreed on a solution, the assessors, in my experience, provided some last minute information that potentially invalidated our decision. So I thought they were looking for critical thinking, quick problem solving skills, sort of where you want to provide a valid solution to work around the new information. So if you can come up with that, then it's definitely a good way to demonstrate solution-oriented thinking while communicating it to your team and proposing it as a leader. So definitely always look out for that, because it is a sneaky little thing that they chuck in there. Group task presentation. So for the presentation, it was up to us to decide whether we spoke as a team and everyone had a little bit to say each, or whether 1 or 2 people did all the speaking for us. We actually decided that we'd all present, so we had a couple of minutes each, or 1 minute each, I think. And I definitely recommend doing that, because it just shows you're ready to step up and further demonstrates that you're keen to contribute. So we had about 25 minutes, as I mentioned earlier, to do the whole discussion and come up with a solution as a team. So after about 23 minutes, we decided who would say what, which is quite a good opportunity to delegate, actually. So if so-and-so has been talking about the associated risks and opportunities involved with going on a certain idea, then you could suggest that what do they think about presenting those points. So definitely not saying anything negative, such as, so-and-so, you didn't put very good points across on that, so I don't think you should present those ideas, because that just doesn't show very good leadership or encouragement or anything like that. So yeah, definitely let people know they had great ideas and suggest that they might present those. There are loads of soft skills you can practice for group tasks. So again, make sure you do your research and really know how to behave and what language to use before going into these assessment centres. There's loads of YouTube videos of people explaining things like that, and lots of resources online. So I definitely recommend tapping into those. It will just benefit you massively, because you won't come across negative or have certain body posture that gives off the sense that you don't really want to be there. So yeah, behaviour and language is definitely really important to research as well. So being nervous is very normal. I was very nervous before going into my assessment centre, and everyone in my team, I'm sure, was to some degree as well. But because everyone wants to do well, everyone wants to impress the assessors. If you get stuck with an idea, someone else will probably step in, support you, help you out, and you can reciprocate that. So as long as you're enthusiastic, communicate effectively, contribute to other people's ideas, and also demonstrate the soft skills in terms of the behaviour, the language, and what they're looking for, which you'll have done your research on, then you have nothing to worry about. It's actually quite an enjoyable process, and it goes pretty quick as well. Presentation and interview. The interview stage is definitely the chance to really impress the assessors, convince them that you're going to fit into the role that you're applying for, and also you're going to benefit their company. And because it's an online assessment centre, you'll probably get a link like I did where you can join a room via Zoom. Definitely, again, make sure you turn up a little bit early because it shows you're ready, on time, keen. But also, when you're sat in a room waiting for people, I feel like it can calm the nerves a little bit because there's nothing worse than joining when people are waiting for you and then you have to get, straight in at the deep end. So yeah, turn up early and dress smart. The interview that I had was conducted by a partner and a senior member from the company, and it started with a 10-minute presentation on a topic that I was briefed on about a week beforehand, which was then followed by 20 minutes of questions specific to that presentation. And then that was followed by a 30-minute interview with competency-based questions. But realistically, the whole time that you're in that room with the assessors, the whole thing is an interview. So yeah, keep that in mind. So about a week in advance, I was emailed several topics which I was to prepare a presentation on one of them. And that was again my choice, but I had to act as if I was briefing and advising a company client based on the company that I was applying for. The presentation had to include my stance on the topic, considerations I thought the client should take care of or take account of, and then recommendations I had for the client moving forward. So 3 key topics to make sure the presentation was based around, but lots of information that you could go off and get into spirals about. So really about understanding your brief, picking a topic that you're going to be delivering with a little bit of passion, and making sure you include all the key information within 10 minutes or however long you might get given for a presentation. For your presentation, I definitely recommend creating a script for yourself so that you can go and practice it, prepare in advance, and memorize everything that you're going to say, because it will really help you deliver the presentation with confidence. And also, if you do get given a time limit, you can practice with the limit so you don't go over. Also, whatever topic you choose for your presentation, definitely do a lot of research on it, and also further research on each point that you bring up in the presentation, because it will show keen commercial awareness, and also you'll be able to give convincing answers when they ask you specific questions to do with what you've been talking about. As mentioned, the structure of my assessment centre was that after the presentation, the assessors would ask a few questions on topics that I'd covered. And all the questions they asked me were on commercial awareness, on topics that I'd mentioned, how I went round, how I sort of prepared the presentation, how I structured it, where I got all my sources of information and data from. Also, any assumptions you make about a client or important stakeholders or the company from the brief, they might ask you about that. So it's important to take mental notes when you're going through and doing your presentation and practicing it, that they might ask you all these things. Also, importantly, they'll be really interested in your rationale behind your viewpoint or whatever the brief is trying to ask you to do. So always have something in mind that you've practiced as an answer to really show how you reach your conclusion, and then the recommendations as well. But yeah, the assessors are really interested in the point of view, especially in my assessment centre. So as long as you practice your script and really research your chosen topic, then there aren't really any right or wrong answers. Interview. The best way to feel confident for an interview is to be prepared as much as possible. So for the assessment centre that I've just been through, I wrote down a list of 20 popular questions that I could have been asked, and then I rehearsed them out loud in a private space alongside my CV. Having your CV there, you can look at all your experiences that you've been through. You can look at your skills, your grades, all of that kind of thing that they probably have in front of them too, the assessors. And then you can, the best way I think is to actually hear yourself speaking out loud, because then you can refine your answers as you go. And then the more you rehearse and practice, the more confident you become at improvising, because in the interview, when you're under pressure, you're going to be improvising most of the time. So if you're rehearsing by improvising with reference to your CV constantly, then when you're actually in the interview, you'll be giving really good answers. And that's probably the best way that helped me prepare for my interview. Common questions can be found online, and if you dig deep enough, there are actually likely to be lists of questions previously asked by the specific company that you're actually applying to. I found ones on Excel before, Microsoft Word documents, PDF files. So if you do look hard enough, then you'll find lots of information that will help you prepare for your interview. Also, at the end of the interview, have a couple of questions ready to ask the assessors, as it shows your enthusiasm and interest for the role and company. At the end of the assessment centre, there'll be a closing talk, and in my experience, this was about 15 minutes long, where the early careers team and all the candidates came back together, and we were informed about the next steps moving forward, and then also had the opportunity to ask further questions. But really, you've got this far, you've been through the whole assessment centre, so it's a good chance to thank the early careers team for their time, and just sit back and relax, wait for the results. You'll probably hear back quite quickly, because at this stage they've filtered through most of the applications, so there might only be 100 of you left, for example. So they usually expect to hear back within a week. Good luck.
Thanks for listening to the Property Elite podcast this week. Head to our website to check out our full blog, free and paid support resources and services, free consultation for every single RICS APC and ASOC RICS candidate, and also ask us any questions you have via the website chat blog. See you next week.